Hello, all listeners and viewers. Welcome to another episode of What's the Day Live. Today, we are talking about Sustainable Entrepreneurship Day, which is celebrated every year on 14 December. And today, I have with me Ms. Louise Edmonds, who is the business owner of Carbon Sync, another organization working in the field of sustainable entrepreneurship and sustainable business. We'll be talking about how the day is important and how business owners can contribute to the goal of creating a better environment and safe nature for all of us. Louis, would you like to take the stage first and tell us about what you've been doing in the past? And then we'll go forward with the discussion.
Oh, thank you, Aditya. So Carbon Sync is a carbon farming project developer. What we do is support farmers to enhance the health of their farm ecosystem, primarily through looking at soil health and improving that soil health and generating carbon credits. We work in two other areas. One is ecosystem restoration. So we do biodiverse plantings on farms, and we generate income through carbon and the emerging nature repair market in Australia. And we also do agricultural decarbonisation. So we support farmers to lower their production emissions and gain advantage in the agri-food supply chain for the supply of a low carbon commodity.
So, Louis, so this day itself, right, Sustainable Entrepreneurship Day, it was founded just in 2021, okay, by an organization called Entrepreneurship Without Borders. Now they wanted to raise awareness about this need for a new paradigm in entrepreneurship, basically, that focuses on sustainability in all aspects. Okay. Now you've chosen a very niche field in which you want to work with farmers and give them a better chance at improving soil health and creating better yields year on year, right? So how did this idea come up for you? I mean, why did you choose this very specific thing, right? Because, I mean, it's got a lot of technology involved. You need to have to build something. And then where did this idea come from?
Okay, so the idea, well, it's really about what is needed right now on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
In many places, our ecosystems are very degraded.
Yeah.
And the places where we can have the biggest influence on that degradation are in managed landscapes. So by managed landscapes, I mean predominantly agricultural land. So 55% of Australia is managed by farmers. So farmers can play a really critical role in restoring our ecosystems and stabilising our climates. So that's where it started. But these tasks take decades, in fact, generations. It's not something that you can, take a single intervention in over maybe a period of a year and expect to get an outcome that will be sustained in the long term. So you need to have a really robust business model under any business that attempts to achieve these outcomes. And I've been in this space for 20 years in the space of, agricultural change and regeneration in agriculture. And I've worked with some of the best people in the world who are very passionate and very skilled at supporting farmers in these transitions. But over my period of working in this space, what I saw very clearly was that there was not a sustainable business model to enable these people to deliver the level of services required to actually sustain and maintain those ecological outcomes. So it was in 2007 that I first learned about carbon markets.
Yeah.
And it became obvious to me very quickly that these financing mechanisms were designed to support these interventions over decadal timeframes. So from my experience, I discovered that, okay, this is the pathway to support the interventions over that time frame.
Mhm. Now, this whole paradigm, right? We have to talk about creating structural changes for all these economic activities, because socially and environmentally they have to be sound as well, right? We have to help empower communities to harness local resources, conserve ecosystems, and drive economic independence through this whole sustainable entrepreneurship and the business models that we're using. But then again, on a fundamental perspective, while working on the ground, right, farmers may not have the right financing methodologies to be working with the technologies that you're using, right, helping them improve soil health. Okay. So you're acting as a facilitator for them, but then how is your business growing in this process? I mean,
Yeah.
I get you're investing a lot of effort and time into the whole thing, right? But then how is your business growing in the whole scheme of things?
Yes. Okay. So this is the really important thing about carbon finance.
Mhm.
So our business model, when we enroll a farmer into our program, our business model generates income for us
Mhm.
to support that farmer for the transition over a period of 25 years.
Okay.
So it's an extremely robust and stable business model that actually enables this to happen. Now, it's quite interesting because, you know, if we look at governments, for example, governments often have, 3-year or 4-year terms. So governments often don't make the investments beyond the term of government, right? They also the way that they often invest is through grants, and grants are one-off,
Mhm.
sums of money which don't have any continuity, and grant priorities are shifting and changing all the time. So building a business off grants, in my mind, was not a pathway, and I decided early that I would not be doing that.
Okay.
Now, when we look at, for example, our customer, the company that funds us through climate finance, they are a huge oil and gas company, that has a $70 billion investment in Western Australia, to produce oil and gas. And that company must decarbonise. That decarbonisation is not going to happen overnight, right? So Australia has set targets under the nationally determined contributions to reduce our emissions to 2050. And those targets are legislated into what you could call an emissions trading scheme. It's not called that, but let's just use those terms because they're quite easy for people to understand. So the company that has funded us has a 30-year horizon
Mhm.
where they need to achieve their objectives. And it's only a corporation that would have a 30-year horizon and would be able to stay the course over an intervention like the one that we are facilitating for them for that period of time. It's only a corporation that would have the kind of money to actually do that, right? So it's fascinating that these mechanisms, the mechanisms of climate finance, can provide sustainable capital and a business imperative over decades. And I think that this is, one of the first times that we've ever seen that, which is very exciting.
Yeah. So you've brought a very exciting, I mean, very different twist to this whole thing. You're saying that an oil and gas company is involved and trying to basically offset their carbon emissions, is what I correctly understand, by investing in your business, and then they're financing the farmers, right? So
So,
it's
so
been,
you know, it's a double and triple dividend, right?
yeah.
So the offsetting activity, um, enables us to
Mhm.
support the farmers to remove the carbon pollution from the atmosphere that the oil and gas company has produced, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in doing that, we restore that ecosystem. So we build the soil health, we build the biodiversity, we make that ecosystem more productive, more profitable, and more resilient to the impacts of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we generate income for that farmer. We
Okay.
build skills in ecosystem restoration and all of the science and field work that sits behind that, and bring jobs into rural communities and income into the economy. So it's really a win in every direction.
Yeah. So this is what all sustainable entrepreneurship is about, right? Creating multiple effects by a single activity if we can create impact for the environment, right? So that's how it is. But again, coming back to the topic of sustainable entrepreneurship, if we talk about other new entrepreneurs who are coming up, right, new business owners, if they were to look at different issues, let's talk about Australia itself. What were some areas where you would like to see more businesses come up? If we talk about something like this, if you ever thought about that in the.
Oh, I mean, there's just a huge need, like in every direction, right? So, I mean, some of the things that I would like to see tackled, in Australia is housing. So how do we create and generate an ongoing supply of affordable housing for working Australians? This is a major issue. What's in the way of that? Of why is it so difficult for us to achieve provide these basic needs for people?
Yes.
That's one thing that I'm really passionate about. I mean, materials, so plastics, I mean, come on, it's crazy. More and more and more plastics are coming into our lives. We know how much of a pollutant plastic is, how much damage it does, how difficult is to manage. Surely we can eradicate that from the system, and how do we go about that? So there are a couple of things that I'm really, really interested in. I suppose, as an entrepreneur, personal sustainability can be very challenging as an individual, for myself, learning, I mean, the problems that I'm trying to solve and that many entrepreneurs in my category are trying to solve are big, wicked problems.
Yeah.
We're often, very, very under-resourced. We don't have, the policy or the regulations or the economic fundamentals behind us to actually move the needle. And most of us, we're not motivated by money. We're motivated by, the big picture and getting those outcomes. And it can be overwhelming sometimes, and it can be difficult for me to manage my own personal sustainability. So that's a journey that I'm going through at the moment to try and, get that balance. You probably hear that from lots of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. You talked about motivation, right? So where do you get the daily motivation for this? Okay. I've not asked you about what's the impact that you're driving, how much uh, money that you help finance the farmers for, or how much carbon have you helped the oil and gas company offset? If you want to share those numbers over a period of time, is that significantly huge? Something of that sort?
Yes, so Carbon Sink has a big vision, and we have ambition to have a huge impact. At the moment, we're deploying a pilot project. So that pilot project is aiming to address 80 farms over 80,000 hectares in the entirety of the Southwest Land Division of Western Australia, which is, about 375,000 square kilometres. It's a very large land base. We have about 17 million of hectares that we can apply our technology to here. So our ambition is to be influencing about 1.5 million hectares in the next 10 years.
Okay.
And that would remove something like 300 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere,
Right.
and generate $2 to $3 billion in income a year for the farmers in our region. So it's a significant ambition that we have. And so, if we can actually prove that we can remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in soil in our region, we will move from being a pilot project to a scale up, which would enable us to actually achieve that level of impact. And that is the level of impact that is required if we are going to have any influence over the climate dynamics on the planet. So I was like, oh my God, I mean, that, yeah, so that can be a little bit, oh my God. It was really funny the other day, I was talking to a colleague and she said, oh, we're eating the sky, like we're literally eating the sky. And I'm like, oh my God, she's so right. The saying, how do you eat an elephant? Like one bite at a time, and I've got to remember sometimes that, eating the sky means just taking one mouthful at a time.
So I mean, that's a huge impact. So you're already, your pilot project itself is so huge. So you've got enough proof that the technology itself is scalable, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're moving through that at the moment. So we're at the early days of our pilot project. So we've got a while to go before we can actually be confident that we can achieve these outcomes. But yes, that's the ambition.
That's great. So yeah, thank you for joining me in. I mean, we've talked about your business. We talked about on Sustainable Entrepreneurship Day. I don't know why sometimes my tongue just begets me. But then, yeah, Sustainable Entrepreneurship Day is celebrated every year on 14 December. And then we celebrated to really spread the message that we need entrepreneurs like yourself and others who are working on environmental impact issues and creating a better environment for all of us in the future itself. Thank you for joining in. Thank you to the audience for listening in and viewing us and listening to this conversation. If you like, comment, do share and subscribe. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Louise Edmonds, for joining us.
Thank you, Aditya.